The note said, "Kirk can't wait any longer. Going to see Dr. Scott."
History is filled with moments where people simply vanished, leaving behind only shadows, rumors, and a trail of questions no one could ever answer. Some were beloved icons, others powerful figures whose lives ended in mystery, not certainty. Decades later, their stories still stir the imagination.
Roses to Amelia and the plaudits of the world to a veteran of flights that have shown the way for aviation's progress. It's her most brilliant chapter in a 16-year aviation career.
Weldon Keys. Weldon Keys was an American poet, painter, jazz pianist, and filmmaker, one of the most versatile creative figures of the mid-20th century. Born February 24, 1914, in Beatrice, Nebraska, he became known for his sharp, modern voice and dark wit, with poems appearing in The New Yorker, Partisan Review, and Time. His art and writing later aligned him with the emerging Beat generation, though his work carried a more haunting, existential tone. Despite growing recognition, Keys battled severe depression and restlessness, shifting between artistic disciplines in search of meaning. By the mid-1950s, his marriage had collapsed, and he was struggling both emotionally and financially. On July 18, 1955, his Plymouth was found abandoned near the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, Keys still in the ignition. He was 41 years old. Friends grew concerned for Keys's well-being. Keys had previously spoken of jumping from the bridge. Yet, no body was ever recovered. Others believed he might have faked his death and fled to Mexico, a destination he often mentioned as an escape. Whatever the truth, Weldon Keys vanished into legend, leaving behind a body of work that captured both the brilliance and the darkness of post-war American art, a restless spirit that still echoes through literature and jazz. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, born June 29, 1900, in Lyon, France, was a celebrated aviator, writer, and philosopher, best known as the author of The Little Prince. Long before his literary fame, he was a pioneering pilot who flew mail routes across the Sahara and South America, experiences that deeply shaped his books Night Flight and Wind, Sand, and Stars. During World War II, Saint-Exupéry joined the Free French Air Force as a reconnaissance pilot. On July 31, 1944, he took off from Borgo Airfield in Corsica in a Lockheed P-38, lightning to photograph German positions in southern France ahead of the Allied landings. He never returned. Reports suggest that by this time he was physically exhausted and emotionally strained from years of combat and exile, though still determined to contribute to the liberation of France. For decades, his disappearance remained one of aviation's great mysteries. In 1998, a fisherman near Marseille discovered Saint-Exupéry's silver identity bracelet, engraved with his name and those of his publisher and wife. In 2000, wreckage from his P-38 was located off the southern coast of France, and by 2004, serial numbers confirmed it was his plane. The exact cause of the crash remains uncertain. Theories range from mechanical failure to a mid-air attack. But what endures is his legacy. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry vanished into the same skies he so passionately wrote about, leaving behind words that continue to guide dreamers across generations. Barbara Newhall Follett. Barbara Newhall Follett was a literary prodigy. Born March 4, 1914, in Hanover, New Hampshire. She published her first novel, The House Without Windows, at just 12 years old, followed by The Voyage of the Normandie, 2 years later, earning praise as one of the most promising young writers of her time. Deeply connected to nature, Barbara often wrote about freedom and wilderness. Her life took a difficult turn when her father left the family in 1928, leaving her and her mother struggling financially. During the 1930s, she worked as a secretary in New York and continued to write, though her later works went largely unnoticed. In 1934, Barbara married Nickerson Rogers, with whom she had once hiked the Appalachian Trail. Their marriage became strained, and on December 7, 1939, after an argument, she walked out of their Brookline, Massachusetts home and vanished without a trace. Despite police searches and decades of speculation, no evidence of her fate was ever found, leaving behind one of literature's most haunting mysteries, the disappearance of a prodigy whose light faded too soon. Glenn Miller. Major Glenn Miller was one of America's most beloved band leaders, whose swing music defined an era. Born March 1, 1904, in Clarinda, Iowa, he rose to fame in the late 1930s with unforgettable hits like In the Mood, Moonlight Serenade, and Chattanooga Choo Choo. His smooth trombone sound and perfectly arranged orchestra made him the symbol of pre-war optimism and dance hall joy. When the United States entered World War II, Miller enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Forces, eventually rising to major. He organized and conducted the Army Air Force Band, performing across Europe to lift soldiers' spirits and broadcasting music to Allied troops and civilians via the BBC. In 1944, his band relocated to Bedford, England, and his concerts became a cherished reminder of home for those fighting overseas. On December 15, 1944, Miller boarded a UC-64 Norseman aircraft at RAF Twinwood Farm en route to Paris, where he was to prepare for his band's arrival. Aboard were Lieutenant Colonel Norman Basel and Flight Officer John R. Stewart Morgan. The plane disappeared over the English Channel and was never recovered. Theories have ranged from enemy fire to accidental bombing debris, but most experts believe the aircraft succumbed to icing or mechanical failure in heavy fog. Miller was officially declared missing in action, and his loss sent shockwaves through both the military and the music world. Though he vanished without a trace, Glenn Miller's music endures as the sound of the greatest generation. Timeless, hopeful, and forever echoing through history. Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart was a pioneering American aviator, author, and advocate for women in aviation. Born July 24, 1897, in Atchison, Kansas, she became the first woman to fly solo non-stop across the Atlantic Ocean in 1932, earning worldwide fame and multiple awards, including the U.S. Distinguished Flying Cross. Throughout the 1930s, Earhart set numerous aviation records and inspired generations with her daring spirit and best-selling books about flight. Determined to push boundaries further, she planned to circumnavigate the globe, the longest flight ever attempted by a woman at that time. On July 2, 1937, Earhart and her navigator Fred Noonan departed from Lae, New Guinea, in a Lockheed Model 10E Electra, bound for Howland Island in the Central Pacific. They never arrived. Despite one of the largest naval search efforts in history, no trace of the plane or crew was found. The official investigation concluded that the aircraft likely ran out of fuel and crashed into the ocean. Earhart was declared legally dead on January 5, 1939. Yet, countless theories, from secret landings to island captivity, have kept her story alive, making her disappearance one of the most enduring mysteries in aviation history. Joe Pickler. Joe Pickler was an American actor best known for his roles in Varsity Blues, 1999, and Beethoven's Third and Fourth, 2000-2001. Born February 14, 1987, in Bremerton, Washington, he began acting as a child and quickly became one of Hollywood's most promising young performers, appearing in more than a dozen films and television shows. In 2003, at his parents' urging, Joe returned home from Los Angeles to complete high school. Despite stepping away from acting, he stayed in touch with friends from the industry and spoke often about returning to film once he felt ready. Those close to him described him as intelligent, warm, and sensitive, someone who carried both ambition and quiet introspection. On the night of January 5, 2006, the 18-year-old vanished after spending time with friends. 4 days later, police discovered his silver Toyota Corolla abandoned on a bridge in Bremerton. Inside, they found a note expressing his wish to be stronger and asking that his belongings go to his younger brother. Investigators suggested possible self-harm, though no conclusive evidence was ever found, and his body was never recovered. His family has always hoped for answers, but to this day, the disappearance of Joe Pickler remains one of the most haunting unsolved cases in Hollywood's modern history. Ambrose Bierce. Ambrose Bierce was an American writer and journalist, born in 1842 in Ohio. A Civil War veteran, he transformed his harrowing experiences into dark, unforgettable stories like An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. His biting humor and cynicism earned him the nickname Bitter Bierce, especially after publishing The Devil's Dictionary, a masterpiece of irony. In 1913, at 71, Bierce traveled to Mexico to observe Pancho Villa's revolution. His last known letter from Chihuahua ended with grim wit. "Goodbye. If you hear of my being stood up against a Mexican stone wall and shot to rags, please know that I think it's a pretty good way to depart this life." Soon after, he vanished without a trace. Whether killed, lost, or living under another name, no one ever found him. Bierce's disappearance remains one of literature's great mysteries, a fitting finale for a man who spent his life writing about death and fate. Sean Flynn. Sean Leslie Flynn, son of Hollywood legend Errol Flynn, was born May 31, 1941, in Los Angeles, California. Handsome and adventurous, he followed briefly in his father's footsteps, acting in films such as Where the Boys Are, 1960, and Son of Captain Blood, 1962. Disillusioned with Hollywood, Sean turned to photojournalism, seeking a more meaningful and daring path. By the late 1960s, he was covering the Vietnam War, working for publications including Time and Paris Match. Known for his fearless spirit, he often traveled deep into combat zones with other risk-taking correspondents. On April 6, 1970, while traveling by motorcycle near the Cambodian border, Flynn and his friend Dana Stone, a fellow journalist for CBS, were captured by communist guerrillas, believed to be Viet Cong or Khmer Rouge forces. Despite years of investigation, neither man was ever seen again. In 1984, Flynn was officially declared dead in absentia, though his remains have never been found. His disappearance remains one of the most haunting unsolved cases from the Vietnam War era, the tragic end of a life lived in search of danger and truth. Tammy Lynn Leppert. Tammy Lynn Leppert was an American actress, model, and beauty queen. Born February 5, 1965, in Rockledge, Florida. By her late teens, she had won over 280 beauty titles and modeled for major brands, including a CoverGirl feature in 1978. She appeared in several films, most notably Spring Break, 1983, and Scarface, 1983. But soon after filming, friends noticed a disturbing change in her behavior. According to her close friend Wing Flanagan, she came back from a weekend party a different person, suddenly fearful and convinced someone wanted to harm her. On July 6, 1983, Tammy left home with a friend, heading to Cocoa Beach, Florida. After an argument, he claimed to have dropped her off near State Road A1A, and she was never seen again. She was 18 years old. Rumors linked her disappearance to serial killer Christopher Wilder or John Crutchley, but no proof ever surfaced. In 1985, police received anonymous calls claiming Tammy was alive and working as a nurse, though the reports were never confirmed. Her case remains one of Florida's enduring mysteries. Jean Spangler. Jean Elizabeth Spangler was an American actress, dancer, and model. Born September 2, 1923, in Seattle, Washington. She moved to Los Angeles as a teenager, drawn by the glamour of Hollywood. By the late 1940s, she was slowly building a film career, appearing as an extra in productions such as When My Baby Smiles at Me, 1948, and Chicken Every Sunday, 1949. Friends described her as ambitious, graceful, and full of promise, a young woman on the verge of success. On the evening of October 7, 1949, the 26-year-old left home, saying she was meeting her ex-husband, Dexter Benner, to discuss child support and would later attend a night shoot. She was last seen around 5 p.m. at a grocery store near Wilshire Boulevard wearing a blue suit and white gloves. 2 days later, her purse was found in Griffith Park, its strap torn as if from a struggle. Inside was a cryptic, unfinished note. "Kirk can't wait any longer. Going to see Dr. Scott. It will work best this way while Mother is away." The message fueled speculation. Some linked Kirk to actor Kirk Douglas, who denied knowing her personally. Others believed Dr. Scott referred to an illegal abortion or even possible mob connections. Despite an extensive police search and national headlines, Jean Spangler was never found. Her disappearance remains one of Hollywood's most haunting mysteries, a young star who vanished just as her future began to unfold. Though their final paths remain unknown, their stories continue to echo through history, reminders of lives that ended in questions, not answers. Thank you for watching and for traveling with me through these enduring mysteries.